Yes, perfect. So we will. I hope that everyone has come back from lunch, and we can't hear you right now because most of you are muted. But anyhow, we have managed to connect to Mrs. Gudrun Shulze. She is representing DG Move and has since the start of the Swiftly Green project given strong and good support to the project. She has a long experience in the field of transport and mobility and is a resourceful partner in the development of a greener European transport system. So I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Gudrun Shulze from DG Move.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. And I'm very sorry for joining this meeting so late, and therefore also having missed part of your presentation. But finally, we managed, and I think, although this is now a little bit unfortunate in the course of the discussion, but I think I should now use the opportunity to put the Swiftly Green project once again in the overall TEN-T policy, and this with the particular emphasis on how we defined this network with a view to enabling green and sustainable transport. And also, outline where we stand at the moment and what possibilities and what potential is involved in this policy framework in order to further promote projects that contribute to greening of transport, and how to implement in our new TEN-T policy framework certain projects which may result from the Swiftly Green project. So could you then please go to the first slide? This is once again the very basis of our TEN-T infrastructure policy, and as I said, it is designed in a way to enhance mobility while reducing carbon emissions. So it is not an infrastructure development policy for the purpose of developing infrastructure, but in order to enhance mobility. And of course, I guess Sophia said it already this morning, it is the infrastructure part of the common transport policy of the Union, which means, of course, it has to help reducing carbon emissions substantially while making sure the increasing mobility needs both of passengers and freight will be met in a sustainable way. So the elements, I have set them out already in previous meetings, but I think I would like to stress them once again. We have a real network policy, so not disconnected projects, and a policy that incorporates and encompasses all the different transport modes and brings them together. We have a dual layer network structure, a network which has really the strategic importance, the core network, but also one which ensures distribution and accessibility in all parts of the Union. And since we are talking, as I said, about a full network and about a full network that encompasses all transport modes, of course, there has to be emphasis on nodes, and this is also vital in order to enable transport across the different transport modes, and this with the view of facilitating transport chains also from a sustainable transport perspective. So transport chains which really build to the largest possible extent on sustainable transport modes and reduce wherever possible the road lag to the final destination and just to the final distribution, just to as short as possible connections. We've set ambitious standards for all transport infrastructure, and this again, it includes technical standards, but it also includes infrastructure standards, like, for example, in the waterway sector. And this again helps to facilitate, to remove bottlenecks, of course, and facilitate and enable smooth transport flows, avoid bypassing, and that also is an aspect that helps making the whole system, the system as a whole, more efficient and more sustainable. We have created an infrastructure policy and a network policy that includes traffic management and innovative equipment. So that is really an integral part of infrastructure development. And of course, these are key tools to use infrastructure more efficiently, to enhance service quality. And when we talk about innovative equipment, this is to a large extent about clean fuel solutions, about interoperable control and command systems, about systems like CESAR, which are facilitating air traffic management and aiming at a single European air traffic management, which avoids unnecessary flights and makes that system also cleaner and more efficient. We would like to ensure that these plans are really stable and are not changing all the time, since this is, in our view, a really strong infrastructure basis, and that everyone concentrates its efforts on this one single network plan. And not least, we may have very nice plans on the map, but they also need to be implemented. And for that purpose, we also have a number of innovative or new implementation instruments. And with this, I would like to pass to the next slide. We have, as I briefly mentioned, created this so-called dual-layer network approach. We have the core network as the part which is really in the center of attention of everybody, and which is the most strategic part of our TEN-T policy, and where we at EU level concentrate efforts on in order to make sure this network can be completed by 2030. And this network in all its dimensions. So with all these issues which I was referring to, multimodality, innovation, intelligent systems, mechanisms to use existing infrastructure as efficiently as possible. And of course, when we have this strategic network, then this means also we are concentrating as much as possible transport on this network. And this again gives the possibility also to maximize the gains. When we are focusing on this network, when we are focusing on these standards which we are setting not only on infrastructure but on innovation and intelligence, then of course also we can gain more than while doing projects just somewhere at the periphery. So, this network, I just repeated, it results from a single European planning methodology. So it is really a guarantee that it is a stable network and not subject to changes like individual projects might possibly be subject to changing political priorities or whatever. So with this single network approach, we've also created a kind of ownership feeling amongst the different member states and other partners, because if one may benefit from projects on the territory of other member states. So there's a mutual winning, but of course also a losing if one does not do his job. Then other people will lose. So there's a real network benefit and a common ownership of this network. And there is of course a resource efficiency dimension in it, because this network to a large extent builds on infrastructure which is already existing. And we are trying to maximize really also the benefits and the efficiency of the existing infrastructure. And we have the possibility with this single network to identify projects really in an objective and rational way. So the network is the starting point, and anything that contributes to completing this network until 2030 is a project of common interest and therefore in the focus of our support action. And that, once again, involves all types of projects. It does not only involve hard infrastructure projects. It also involves all the types of projects which are touched upon in the in the Swiftly Green project and in other areas which aim at making transport more sustainable. So then we take the next slide, please. Thank you. With this infrastructure development, as it was designed and as it is now in place for 2 years, we would like to trigger really benefits for the environment and for the users. The network, with its multimodal dimension, with its connection between the different transport modes, enables better service continuity. It provides enhanced possibilities for efficient and high quality and safe co-modal transport chains, both for passengers and for freight. It ensures openness and for future orientation through the integration of innovative aspects and of intelligent systems. It also looks at, and I think I heard that in this morning in one of the presentations, although I was unable to follow systematically, but we pay a lot of attention on nodes, and we include last miles, and that is also a very important aspect to facilitate modal shift. For example, we may construct nice railway lines, or we may upgrade inland waterways, but this alone is not enough to stimulate sustainable transport chains. So we also need to connect to terminals, to railway stations, airports, whatever, so that these chains are really fully developed and well functioning. And this, of course, also in connection with advanced information technologies. And all that, of course, involves a broad spectrum of potential projects in all the different areas, and it provides unique opportunities for spreading best practices, and this is a ambition which we have now also for testing innovative approaches and good practices in many different areas, including, of course, in the field of greening. And, this is where there are certainly interesting possibilities where we can build on the findings of the Swiftly Green projects. We go to the next slide, please. This is just to remind you that on the basis of what I said, we are not only addressing member states as that was in the past. We are addressing a full range of different actors, and I think that also became very evident and very obvious from the discussion this morning. That there's a lot of commitment, there's a lot of initiative from many different actors who are generating, developing projects in the different areas which aim at greening, and which we, with our 10T, are able to accommodate, and where we are pretty much looking for to take this process further. The next slide, please. The core network corridors, this is the part which is probably in the meantime best known and which generates most public interest in terms of our policy. And you all certainly know we have identified these 9 corridors which traverse the Union from different parts, and which all start in ports and end in ports, and which include all these dimensions of the 10T I was talking about. All the transport modes which are available in the corridor, all the multimodal connections, but also all these intelligent and innovative equipments, and of course all the existing infrastructure, so that there are wide ranges of possibilities of developing solutions to make these corridors function as efficiently as possible. And functioning means then, of course, enabling efficient and sustainable and green services. So I would say the opportunities are huge. And of course, it is a process which is very complex and very challenging. But we provide the basis, and we are trying to encourage as many actors as possible to explore these possibilities. And our ambition is it now to make these corridors the forerunners of an efficient and sustainable and innovative transport system. This is what really also our commissioner and our director general announced in public at different occasions. And where we would like to go ahead and search for examples to demonstrate the full range of issues along the corridor. This is, of course, a very long process, and we can't do all at once. But we should really start collecting, as the coordinator you probably know best from this corridor work, as Pat Cox always say, collect low-hanging fruits And this is certainly also a possibility to show that things are moving forward on this corridor, and that these corridors are not just about big and long-lasting projects, but that there's a complementarity between these innovative projects, which are often at shorter term or generate benefits at shorter term, which call upon different actors, and that goes together with other types of projects. So I would like to pass to the next slide, and we can skip this very quickly. This is just once again these corridors, and I did not use here. Well, the previous one was the not schematic map, which shows again that the corridors are really multi-modal corridors and include just everything. They include ports, airports, rail freight terminals, railroad terminals, and what is not to be seen here are all these equipment. So the corridors are about everything, and our schematic map is, I think, very well known everywhere. And this is a kind of identity path of our TNT policy, and we can find it in many occasions, of course. Now, what are we doing with these corridors in this year and next year? And where do I see first step possibilities to build on the results of the Swiftly Green projects? We are now in the process of deepening the corridor analysis, further deepening this analysis. You may know we have just in the middle of this year, completed what we call the first generation of corridor work plans, and we have also presented that to the European Parliament, and there has been a lot of interest in the European Parliament. And I think in the discussions with the European Parliament, there was also a strong interest in the softer side of the corridor development. So not just the big projects, but also all these other elements, and the term sustainability appears pretty often also in those discussions. We are consolidating the identification of projects. We had a first long list attached to this first corridor work plans, but that needs to be further looked into. And a very interesting aspect is that we have now we are embarking on a work which, we call it the establishment of issues papers. We have selected 5 topics which we think are of importance to all the corridors, and which really help us promoting some kind of systems approach for transport and bringing closer together infrastructure development and transport policy. As I said in the beginning, the infrastructure has to provide a good basis for a future transport policy as we want to see it. A transport policy which generates less pollution, but nevertheless ensures forward-looking and future-oriented mobility, and is up to new needs. So we deal with these issues. We have set up teams across the Directorate General move. So that means infrastructure people come together, for example, with people in the field of logistics, or in the field of urban mobility, or in the field of ITS, or in the field of innovation. And in each of those cases, 2 or 3 European coordinators are taking the lead and bring in also their experience, which they may have, both from the corridor, but also from wider activities they have undertaken. And we also look what potential exists on the corridors for such projects, and all that with the aim of identifying first pilot project, testing possibilities, and open up for our corridor work a new generation of projects, or better, broadening also the eyes of the corridor consultants and of member states and of other stakeholders for this, I call it again, softer dimension of projects, innovative projects, intelligent projects, projects that contribute to greening the transport sector. And I think all these 4 topics I was just mentioning are really key to making transport more sustainable. And I think the scope of action which has been undertaken in the Swiftly Green project pretty much fits into this approach. Of course, it will be a process again, and we have to go step by step, and also bring in gradually new actors. You know that transport infrastructure traditionally still is an area where member states are in the leading role, and where other actors have to get used to it gradually. But we are very keen on embarking on this process, and we have strong support in our house at political level to go ahead with that. And also the European Parliament, with whom we discussed that already, is very interested in this approach. So this is, I think, an important issue on how we will continue with our corridor approach. We are now working on the 2nd generation of corridor work plans, which should be ready in June 2016. And we might have some pilot cases on these softer issues, but again, the process is taking up, and will certainly still need some time. But when we are identifying individual projects on these corridors, there's always also a good possibility to spread good practices across corridors and along corridors, in order to really generate a dynamic and make that more, spread it better over the network. I just mention it, although I'm not the expert on it, but apart from the identification and generation of projects, there's also increasing interest and awareness on green issues in innovative financing schemes. So one of the initiatives which is now ongoing is the so-called green shipping guarantee. So this is just one example where apparently guarantees may be issued with EU guarantees for less polluting shipping. But in any case, since we also want to encourage industry, we are also looking at specific possibilities under the European Fund for Strategic Development. Sorry, I was already on the next slide now when I was talking. I'm sorry, I missed it. So these are these issues on the corridors which I was just describing. And to conclude, well, we have the European coordinators as a coordination and facilitation and stimulation instrument, but we also have, of course, the CEF funding possibilities. And you probably know altogether for the period until 2030, we have, 2020, we have 24 billion euro for grants. Are you still hearing me? I am hearing a strange tone now in my telephone.
Yes, we are here.
Okay. Okay, so these are in general the funding possibilities, and I would still like to switch to the last slide, which is the next slide, please. Okay, which is about the currently open call, which includes a number of possibilities for projects that include or that may contribute to developing green transport solutions. And this call, I think, will be open till February. And first of all, it includes quite a considerable part for cohesion countries, not for the others, unfortunately. So for projects which may have been identified on this corridor, it is less relevant, but still in cohesion funds, countries, we are putting quite a lot of money again on rail and inland waterway projects of the corridors. But the areas, I think, which are of particular relevance and where we hope we get good projects which could also be inspired, possibly, by the work of the Swiftly Green. They are about logistics platforms. So on the one hand, we would like to facilitate connections to logistics platforms, but also development within the platforms themselves. And we have here 40 million euro available for all member states and 40 million for cohesion countries. We have new technologies and innovation, where we have 60 million available for all countries and 180 million euro for cohesion countries. Intelligent transport systems, 70 and 100 million, and also nodes in urban areas. And urban areas, as we all know, are really the polluters in the transport sector, but at the same time also the generators of GDP and important for last mile connections. So there as well, we are able to support projects. So this is where we have the possibilities, and well, I forgot to say one thing in the context of the core network corridor activities. We are also making a major step now to enhance our communication activity on these corridors. And I think, a toolbox or information or platform on Green Corridor could be very well linked to that information, and thereby also help spreading information about the wealth of good ideas you have collected within this project, good ideas and tools, so that they could really be of help to many other project promoters. So we would certainly be able to sell that in the best possible way and in the most efficient way, also in the framework of our corridor policy. So this is what I would like to tell you about TEN-T policy, and hopefully you can also find some potential on how to make use of the results of the very interesting and very forward-looking and very good results of the Swiftly Green project within the further development of the TEN-T policy. Thank you.